Good morning, folks, and welcome to another edition of City Hall Live. I am Joe Abeta, and a special guest with us today, City Councilor of District 2, Councilor Ives. We joke because we were doing the countdown before, but Councilor Ives, how you doing?
I am doing great,
Yeah.
and what a delight to be here with you this morning.
Thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate it. I always have a great time with our conversations and stuff, man, because, you know.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It's
But-
as it should be here in Santa Fe.
So let's talk about your news first,
Yes.
and then we'll get into other stuff. But you've decided not to run
Yes.
again for a third term, and so what was the reason? If you could share that with us.
Happy to, and indeed, I sent out an email to everybody at the city saying, basically stating why. So a number of certainly life circumstances, and then
Yeah.
also, when I came into this position, and over the course of the past 8 years, we've had some discussion about term limits, and of course, my understanding of the law as interpreted, within our city council's office is that we cannot have term limits in Santa Fe. And so
Why can't we?
I don't know about
Okay,
the peculiarities.
Just some dude that said, "Hey, bro, we can't have term limits."
Well, and I think it may be limited to cities and
Gotcha.
organizations of certain sizes.
Gotcha.
It's,
Okay. Yeah.
But I always thought, two limits or 2 terms or 3 terms was as much as anybody should have on council,
Gotcha.
because that's a long period of time. And the issues change, perspectives change, and honestly, you want to create space for the city's next generation of
Yeah,
leaders
absolutely.
to start coming forth and taking over and, having that experience and being involved. And I must admit, I'm thrilled by so many of the young people I know who are doing exactly that,
Yeah.
getting involved,
Yeah.
coming into positions of significance within the city. So I'm very hopeful for our future from that perspective. But, 2 or 3 terms, and in the end, two seemed appropriate for me.
Yeah.
Back in October, my first grandchild was, first and only so far,
Congratulations, yeah.
was born.
Your favorite grandchild at this time?
By far and away.
Yeah, that's right.
By far and away at this point. And, my wife and I have been blessed that all 3 of our kids have found good jobs in Santa Fe.
Yeah.
Well, they live in Santa Fe. My son actually works for up in Los Alamos. And so my granddaughter lives all of 10 minutes away from our house. And my wife's parents, and we built actually a guest house on our property, so they live 30 feet outside our back door.
Okay.
Their involvement in our kids' lives when they were young
Yeah, absolutely.
was just critical to who they have become.
Gotcha.
And I like all my kids, mind you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that
You can love your
relationship-
kids, but not necessarily like them, right?
Well,
but
and-
you love them and like them. So
And
that's
in this
good.
case, yes, that is exactly right.
Yeah.
But I honor that relationship between grandparents and grandchildren. And it's one I don't want to miss out on in any way. And that period of life from birth to 5 years old, which is basically, if I did another term, what I'd be talking about, that is such an incredibly rich time in terms of the development of a child. So I want to be very much a part of that. So that was a primary motivator.
And time is a valuable commodity, right? You never get that back.
Yes,
Right.
that is
And
true.
so, yeah, I could see that, man. That right there alone, other than the time limit, but that would seem
Yeah.
like that would be a very, very big factor in.
Well, when I first ran for council, I ran only because our youngest, our son, was in his second year down at UNM at the time. So all the kids were, in a sense, launched.
Yeah.
And that to me said that it was an appropriate time to look at trying to do something on a larger scale in terms of service to the city of Santa Fe.
Yeah, and you wanted to give back too. I
yeah.
mean, you moved here from the east back when you had come to visit,
Yeah.
fell in love with the place, left, and then wanted to come back. And you married a local gal from here, and You guys raised your family here, you set your roots here, and you love everything about this area, you know, and I know for a
Truth in
fact,
that.
yes, absolutely. And you wanted to give back to your community, you know, that was very
To me,
important
it's a
to you.
natural thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the opportunity to be involved in the policy work at the city has been brilliant.
Yeah.
The one other factor was,
By the way, you moved here when you were a lot younger, just so, yeah.
truth in that.
Very, very young, but yeah, go ahead.
1983
Yes.
to be precise.
So we weren't the Santa Fe that people know today. It was the 1983 Santa Fe, which was still the 1970 Santa Fe. And maybe
Probably
possibly
in a way.
a lot of 60 and 50 Santa Fe left in there. But we hadn't become that world-renowned city yet.
No, but it was on the cusp.
Yes, exactly.
It was on the cusp
Yeah.
because the 1982 to 1983, I came out in the summer of 82.
Yeah.
And of course came back in 83 after finishing law school.
Mm-hmm.
But that was when you first started to see articles in some of the national, international
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
magazines about Santa Fe.
Our cologne hadn't been launched yet.
Right.
By the way, did you ever?
Nor
did you
had
ever-
the Hyundai,
Had
right.
you ever tried the cologne?
I'm afraid not. I'm not a cologne guy.
I haven't either. I wonder if anybody has a bottle. I'd like to try it just to see how it smelled. It wasn't Avon. You know, my grandmother sold
There's
Avon,
an
but I
easier,
wouldn't.
there's an easier way.
How's that?
Just get a
Old magazine
no,
and-
get a
oh.
green piece of green chili and
And
slap it.
Slap a little bit on there. A little red chili.
Perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect for
That's
Santa
true.
Fe.
I wonder how that stuff smelled. I don't know if it was a musk or if it was sweet. Who knows? But you know.
So the one other factor that went into that decision was I had spent a week in Washington on behalf of the Regional Coalition of Landfill Communities.
Okay.
Meeting with members of Congress, supporting, funding for cleanup of the legacy waste at Los Alamos, and then participating in the Energy Communities Alliance meetings there. And
This is today, not way back when, right?
no, this is just before I made my announcement. So
That you were okay.
And, I got home and I realized how much the impact of being away, the cumulative impact of that just on my household, on Patricia, my wife.
Yeah.
So 8 years of usually 2 to 4 meetings a week, weekend activity. I mean, as I said during the mayoral campaign, if I had gotten that, and it's always a plus and minus that
Yeah.
you did or didn't.
Yeah.
But 4 hours a day, city meetings, 4 hours a day, external across the city meetings, and 1 to 4 hours a day celebrating the city. So, weekends full of events. And that does take a time in terms of being away from the home. And I love my wife dearly, so
Yeah.
it was okay.
Do you like your wife?
Just a little bit.
Okay.
That's because she's 5
Yeah,
foot
I got
tall.
you. Yeah.
But it was the cumulative effects of all of
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
I will say that the one thing that made me, or was the thing standing in the way of that decision, was a number of the significant issues that I've been involved in that I think are still critical to Santa Fe becoming that sustainable place that, I ran on each time. My platform in that first campaign was, Santa Fe's sustainable future and making us relevant for the next 400 years.
Yeah.
And if you look at the lens of that in terms of what I've tried to do at council, you'll understand what I have been about.
This brings up a really good question. Let's say there's a magic pill that allows you, or let's just use this. You're up in heaven 400 years in the future.
Yes,
And
I'm hoping.
yes, and if you're in purgatory, you have maybe 10,000
working-
years left on your,
working my
your
way
thing.
up.
But, I'm just kidding. But you're somewhere.
Yes.
Heaven, yes, absolutely. 'Cause you're a good guy. So yeah, you're looking down here 400 years from now in heaven. What do you hope to see? What do you hope Santa Fe is 400 years from now?
Well, very much, certainly what I hope for Santa Fe today, which is first and foremost a community in which we live in a real diverse and multicultural environment where there is respect for not only people as people, but also the complexities and the richness of culture. And that against a context of a city in which everybody who lives and works here can make a good living and raise their children, have them be well educated, and lead to that generational success.
Do you think we'll see visually, there'll be the plaza, you think we'll still see Adobe downtown 400 years from now? Flying cars? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
do you think, I know that it's an important thing for us to keep the charm of it, right? I mean, there still is that charm that's here that you,
And
when
I
you
would
first
say,
got here,
and again, I tend not to speak
Yeah.
in terms of charm.
I
but,
got you.
I mean, that is our culture.
Yeah.
Quite frankly.
Yeah.
So as an example,
Mm-hmm.
Adobe.
Okay.
So structures made out of adobe, and the old ones that have the walls that are 3 feet thick,
Yeah.
that tend to keep cool in the summer and keep warm in the winter. I mean, people took advantage of what was here to live in harmony with their environment.
Yeah.
So, modern context, technology happens, and we've got to be welcoming of that.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
New Mexico is the second highest rated state in terms of solar capacity.
Yeah.
And I think somewhere between third to fifth in wind capacity, renewable energy sources. So I see a future for Santa Fe where we are taking full advantage not only of that former sort of low-tech construction that allows us to be tremendously energy efficient, but also modern technology that will allow us to meet all our needs in a modern world, but utilizing what's available locally and in a way that's culturally sensitive.
And keep it. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. And I think that is a great prediction of what we will do, because there'll be people like you, like other folks that live here that love our community the way it is and want to preserve that part of it by using new technology to make us more efficient, but still keeping our traditions and our culture in place.
Yes, and it's interesting because obviously we've been through the challenges of events like the Entrada, which the loss of it challenges some in terms of their sense of Santa Fe's culture and background. I tend to agree with the Archbishop several years ago on Indigenous Peoples Day when he said, we can't have a celebration that harms other people. That seems a relatively straightforward principle, which again is respective of the multitude of cultures. So we've moved away from that. We got our new resolution.
Second year of that, right?
Yeah. But it doesn't mean we've given up on all the complexities and richness of Hispanic culture, and in large part because there are so many things still to celebrate in that. I look at my wife, Northern New Mexico, Hispanic Catholic woman, her relationship with her parents, her relationship with extended family, her relationship with culture. I would not leave any of that behind. And so you have to make that part of who you are. And if you have that understanding and can both preserve what you believe is important in that culture while respecting others, you have at least a broad outline for success in living in community.
Absolutely, and times change. And you got to roll with that, right?
Yes.
Yep. And you got
Not sure we're ready for scooters, but
No. Yeah, not scooters, but I get it. I know in your past 2 terms there have been difficult decisions like that.
Yeah.
But what you do is you try and meet in the middle and try to make the best of what it is, so both parties are happy and they can walk away shaking hands and moving on and setting a new precedent for the future, right? Of saying, hey, we did this way back when because we wanted to have this result of it.
Well, and quite frankly, that notion of sitting down, and I always love the notion of breaking bread.
Yeah.
Because if you can sit down and break bread with somebody and talk to them, even though you may have widely divergent opinions, and keep it civil and to the issues, then you can have that discussion and respect each other. At least that should be a fundamental goal of
Yeah.
all of us, as opposed to just, I want you to look like me, think like me, and that's the only thing I can tolerate.
Yeah.
And we have huge factors to fight in accomplishing that. Things, I mean, the internet now allows us to never have to leave our home to
That's right, be in the
satisfy
safety of it, and
any need that we
that's
could
right.
possibly have.
And don't
So-
have to look someone in the eyes when we're saying this stuff.
and 8-foot-high fences that say to the rest of the world, "Stay out." You just don't even want to know who you are.
Yes, exactly.
I would eliminate all of those.
Yes. No, exactly. Okay, so let's, what would you say of your past 2 terms? Do you have a top 1, top 2? What would you say is you're most proud of that you were a part of? That you say, wow, that was pretty awesome. I feel really proud that we accomplished that.
Well, accomplishing something and bringing it forward,
Okay,
these are often things that extend through time.
okay,
So an example of one of the things I brought forward was the resolution that Santa Fe should become carbon neutral by the year 2040.
okay,
That initiated a whole series of events and processes, including the redefinition of the Santa Fe Sustainability Commission, the development of a 25-year plan by the city to meet that goal. And again, this is part, in my mind, of Santa Fe's brand, which is living sustainable in a sustainable fashion.
early, man.
In community.
We're
It
good.
is early.
Yeah.
I've only had one meeting so far
it's all
today.
good.
So that one measure that has helped to define that goal for the city. And as I said at the time, for me, it was important to define a goal out there that we could build towards.
Okay.
That we could look at what we're doing and say, this takes us in that direction rather than in some different direction.
Okay.
So that was one.
And that's a great one because that one's just going to keep on going.
Yes.
That's a growing one, right? That
Yes.
maybe in 400 years when you're looking down from heaven, you'll say, hey, I'm really glad that we started that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Well, and I think it will evidence Santa Fe's willingness to participate, as we should, along with every community across the world, in trying to fight the effects of climate change and
Yeah.
the impacts of too much carbon on our world.
Absolutely.
So another internal one, when I got to City Hall, and I forget exactly how long afterwards, but there was a report that was floating around called the Presidio Report.
Okay.
And it took a hard look at our computing systems and our IT structure.
Okay.
And I describe it as a report that would make an adult cry.
Okay.
Because it described a state of affairs that was so negative. I mean, one of the statements in the report was that whenever anybody asked for IT for something, the initial response was, no, we can't do that. And that's one of the critical infrastructure pieces in terms of how the city internally supports itself.
Gotcha.
So I became an early advocate for funding to do IT. When Robert Romero was city manager, we created a new IT department. We started hiring really professional IT people to lead that department. And now we're in the process, and I hope you're enjoying it,
Yeah.
of a conversion to an entirely new enterprise-wide system.
Yeah, we had Juan Blay on last week for our guest, and we were talking about, I don't remember as an employee, I've been here since 2002.
Yeah.
I don't remember this big of an overhaul of training
Yeah.
since I've been a part of the city. I mean, someone is probably yelling, no, Joe, we did this back in this, but I don't remember personally
Yeah.
being involved with this
Yeah.
much training. I mean, Kronos, we had a little bit,
Right.
the clock and stuff, but
Right.
it was just it was a new way of having to write out our timesheets. But this is huge.
Yes.
Because it's going to make things easier for us as far as tracking contracts and everything, but also the following when we need to renew contracts, all the information's there already.
Yes.
So it's gonna streamline us as city employees to be able to serve our community better.
Yes, and I would say it will allow us as city employees to deliver services more efficiently. It will also allow us to sort of measure them and really understand service delivery in the first place and
Yep.
how we can do it better or more efficiently.
Yep.
So a host of benefits, and again, one that just was so sad, and now it's going to be so much better.
Yeah. So how long ago was that? Like, did you?
I
it was
started
when you first
advocating
started?
for that, yeah, probably by the end of 2012, my first year.
Wow. So it's taken almost close to 7 years.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
crazy.
because it's a huge undertaking.
It was huge. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like you see a giant pile of rope that's tangled.
Yeah.
And you're telling folks, hey, when are we gonna untangle this? Well, we got some other stuff we got to do first before we get that. It's like that term paper you don't want to write, and then you finally
Isn't
get
that
to
every
write it.
term paper?
That's true. You're right. Everyone's like that. But well, that's great. Okay. Is there any other ones that you can? I mean, I know you've been a part of a lot
Yeah.
of that's been going on.
You
A
know,
lot
two others that come to mind are housing and water.
Yes.
You know, about 3 years ago, I started to introduce a bunch of housing measures.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a low-income housing tax credit project at the handball court on the
Yeah.
Rayville Park
Yeah, yeah.
portion.
Uh-huh.
Proposed changes to the ADU, the accessory dwelling unit ordinance. Proposed to build out Paseo del Sol in Tierra Contenta to
Yep.
stimulate development there.
Yeah.
I have found with many of the things that I've introduced, they're actually 2 to 3 years ahead of the point in time where there's a collective, real collective will to
Yeah.
move those forward.
Yeah.
So at the next council meeting, we'll consider a reintroduced accessory dwelling unit measure, which I hope will pass.
Yeah.
We'll, as a city, we'll be getting out, I think, an RFP to try and engage private sector in looking at city land and how do we develop this in ways that will allow us to start to address our housing crisis. And that is such a significant one, and just 2 quick statistics.
Yeah.
So the estimate is that probably over 50% of our workforce lives 20 miles or more outside of the city of Santa Fe.
I'm one of them. Yeah.
And that's because often there is not housing
Yeah.
in Santa Fe, and what housing there is not affordable.
Yeah.
Friends who recently put a house on the market, within 24 hours had 8 offers, one that was $50,000 over asking.
That's insane.
But that's our marketplace.
Yeah.
So it is insane.
Yeah.
So we have this new ADU measure coming forward. We have these other efforts that are moving forward. So that's wonderful news to the city. The other aspect is if all those people lived in Santa Fe and weren't earning their wages here and spending them elsewhere, it would probably be another $300 to $500 million in our economy with gross receipts tax to
Yep.
take care of roads, to take care of facilities, to take care of our parks. You know, it is such a win-win-win for the city to do more housing at this point in time. Oh my God. So that's another one. And then, you know, issues relating to water have been of particular
Always, yeah.
significance to me.
Yeah.
So I've introduced a number of measures to promote rainwater harvesting. You know, the whole new stormwater plan that we recently adopted, you know, I had started pushing to try and redo our stormwater, how we do stormwater.
Yeah.
That led to a process of developing a new plan that's now exists and is starting to be implemented. You know, I've introduced measures on aquifer storage and recovery. So looking at all those things that will make sure that we as a city, notwithstanding the fact that the basin studies we've been involved in show that surface water supplies are going to drop by 30 to 40%, that we will still have sufficient water to be a vibrant and resilient and sustainable city is, you know, another one critical for me.
Yeah. And all these things you have mentioned, I mean, it comes down to you've planted the seed, right?
And I've been
And you've seen it grow. Now it's just a matter of.
I've got out there with the hoe and helped.
That's right. That's right. No, but in a sense, you'll be able to look at these things when you know, 10, 15 years from now, and you'll be able to see these things
Yeah.
flourish and bearing fruit and,
Yes.
and seeing what the impact it has on our community, which I think is pretty awesome, man.
And again, it boils down to making sure that we can all live here reasonably, raise our families here in a strong and sustainable environment. Because that is the essence of community, and recognize that everybody who's here is a participant in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Well, I got to tell you, because we're running out of time, but I wanted to tell you that it's been a pleasure working with you. You are always just a very, ask us, the city and the staff, how we're doing. You've just been a pleasure to be around, and you're just a great guy. And I don't have anything, there's nothing that I could think that anybody could say negative about you, man, because you've just been a really good guy, and you've never come in demanding.
Don't ask my wife.
Well, no, but you know what I'm saying. You come in and you treat you stop bringing in the donuts, but that's good because it would have been.
Tell me about it.
Exactly. But I mean, this Councilor Ives used to bring in donuts every week, and it was just like, if you had started a diet or were thinking about doing it, it was just like the chocolate cake ones that were glazed. It was like, oh man, those are amazing.
Yes.
But I gotta say, you've always been very respectful of us and I say city staff and just a joy to work with, man. And I'm gonna miss you.
Well, it's interesting because I always describe my first 6 months on council because when you run, unless you've been involved in the city intimately in some way, you really don't understand much about the workings and people's engagement. But that first 6 months really was an education in how really talented so many of the people who work for the city are and how dedicated they were to the people of Santa Fe and the delivery of service.
Yeah.
So we should always be working together to figure out how to do that better. So it has been a delight. And back at you for everything you have done. And I know, all of this, and you do so much more than people realize in terms of getting transparency, if you will, into the city.
Yep.
Remarkable.
Yep.
So,
thank you.
It's been a joy.
Yeah, and we'll see you around.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, yeah, not going anywhere.
Yeah, that's good. Don't. Thank you very much. City Councilor of District 2, Peter Ives. If you see him out on the plaza, see him anywhere, go up and talk to him. And he's a great guy to know. And thank you for coming on. And
My pleasure.
And you're going to be here till March, right? Or is it
January 1, given the new election
that's
code.
right. That's right.
So, yeah.
Great. Well, we'll see you around, man. But I wanted to get you on before.
No.
Everybody wants to talk to you, so it's a good thing.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. And thank you, folks, for joining us today. This has been City Hall Live. Have a safe week. Have a great week. Adios.